The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame. Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Reagan Kelly, and I am joined this week by all of my cool co-hosts.
Laura Nash.
Nate Heininger.
And Shane Kelly. And this week we are not talking about video games in the strictest sense. We are talking about a different kind of game. That's right, this week we are talking about escape rooms. Sort of. More specifically, we have wanted to talk about escape rooms in general for a long time, but never really found a good sort of way in. We wanted to do one together, but we all live in different cities. We had different comfort levels with escape rooms. I'd never done one before. Others here are experts. But
Questionably.
That's right, I am.
But recently, things have changed with escape rooms, and a lot of them have moved to the internet because of the pandemic. And because of that, we decided to try an online escape room. And we're going to talk first generally a little bit about escape rooms and what they are for the unfamiliar, which was me until pretty recently. And then we'll talk a little bit about our experiences playing Project Avatar, an online escape room experience that we all just went through together that was absolutely wild. And we're also just going to talk a little bit about escape rooms generally and
it was awesome.
How you can check one out without even leaving the comfort of your home.
Yeah, the world of escape rooms has gone, it just exploded in the last year because at-home options became the only options. And there's all these people who had physical rooms that needed to do something with their free time. And also had a lot of people, looking for entertainment for family and friends on Zoom and looking for something to do at home besides crocheting, enter escape rooms. And for people who aren't familiar, I am a puzzle person and I'm a theater person. So I am interested in escape rooms as a combination of the two. Escape rooms are generally puzzle rooms with a time limit, and they're often in a locked room, not with a real lock. If you go in an escape room with a real lock, you're in a bad escape room and you should leave.
If you still can.
If you still can. But that's a sign of a bad, if it's an actual lock, leave. Usually with a team, and it's often played in the real world. But think about that. Play with the team is hard in a pandemic, and in the real world is almost impossible. So these have kind of morphed. There's now, tabletop and mail games and things you can buy in boxes at Walmart. And there's on-demand versions that you can play anytime that are, online experiences. And what we played as a live stream experience with a host and an actual person who you're giving commands to on the other side of the world.
I almost lost my mind when I
didn't make that clear in advance that this was a game where we were physically telling someone in a warehouse in the Ukraine what to do. And Nate did not know this until a minute before the game started.
Well, they're like, okay, so you shout your commands, and I'm like, oh, is this some sort of by consensus? Twitch does Pokemon or whatever, and it's going to be listening to what we're doing, and it's a video game or something like that. And they're like, no, there's just a person that is listening to your commands, and they're just going to do the things that you all say and listen for what, solid demands, and they are literally a human who's going to enact the thing that you're telling them to do. And when that occurred to me, I almost lost my mind. I was like, this is one of those things that I feel like people have been, you're in a room with your friends, oh, what if we made a game where you have a camera on your face and we tell you what to do, and no one would ever actually do it. It just feels like something that people come up with, but no one ever actually would commit to. And these people did, and it is fantastic. This is one of the most absurd things I think I've ever been a part of, and it was so much fun.
I can't wait to talk more detail about that whole experience, which was absolutely wild. But I do want to talk a little more just about escape rooms as a concept and why for me, I've never participated in one before, and it was because I always had this anxiety Well, first of all, it's because there are these things that you go out and do in meat space, and that seemed completely incompatible with everything about my daily life.
Yes.
But on top of that, it always sort of struck me as something really anxiety-inducing, because it's an idea about like, okay, we're going to go lock yourself in a small room with a group of friends, but maybe even strangers too, and you have to sit there and solve puzzles. And if you're bad at it, everyone will know. And like that has always kept me away from escape rooms. Just the entire idea of like going to solve puzzles in a room with other people didn't strike me as with a time limit. My God, like never struck me as something that I would really enjoy doing. Even though I do occasionally enjoy puzzles in video games, like I think what I didn't understand though is like when Laura, when you're a big puzzle enthusiast, and sometimes you share puzzles with all of the rest of us that you think are interesting. And every time I've always thought that doesn't sound like fun because they are these like language puzzles or math puzzles or puzzles that require knowing bits of trivia that well-educated and interesting people would that I don't.
Those are not allowed in escape rooms for many reasons.
They would not fly there.
Yeah, that's the thing that like really struck me here is like this whole experience. And this is maybe this is true of other escape rooms. You can kind of tell me a little bit about your experiences with others if you have them. But I was surprised how similar this experience felt to the way puzzles are presented in video games, as opposed to the way puzzles are presented in something like, I don't know, like a newspaper or a classroom or what have you.
Puzzle hunts and puzzle books are very different than like this kind of room because like, first of all, like a Sudoku is never going to be themed to like an archaeological dig. Like if like, it's like, oh, you opened a hidden tomb, there's a Sudoku. Like also Sudokus are played by one person. Like what's the fun in that? So like you might see a Sudoku puzzle, but I judge you if you put that in your room. But like generally the puzzles are on the easier side. So you can like see all of them and get to the end. And there's like, someone said like 7 to 15 puzzles in an escape room usually.
That sounds like a small number, but that's actually,
depending
I think
on
it sounds about right.
How big
but
they are.
The kinds of puzzles is what really interests me because there are like different sorts of puzzles that kind of are better suited to different kinds of scenarios. And Laura, you were kind of hinting at this. You were saying like there's, you wouldn't put certain kinds of puzzles in an escape room. The things I think you usually see in an escape room, I've done a few, is you see like a mix of logic puzzles, pattern recognition, reading comprehension, deductive reasoning kind of puzzles, and then just a lot of process of elimination kind of tasks.
Yeah, searching, like observation puzzles.
Yeah, like why is this highlighted on this map? There's something, there's there's a bunch of highlighted things on a map. What do they mean? And then later there's a place where you have to enter in city names on a screen or something, and it's like, oh, well, I bet it's all the city names that were highlighted back on that map, right? Like that's a super simple one, but it's a lot of that. Like, why is this obscure thing over here? Oh, I bet this will be key to unlocking something else.
Why is there a hole here? Oh, I might put something in that hole later. That kind of thinking. And I also think they're easier generally.
For this game, a lot of the strategies that I usually try and use in normal escape rooms were kind of tossed out the window. Like my number one thing that I want to try and do in a real world escape room is basically identify the most organized person in the group and make them the project manager and just have everyone bring every clue to that one person so that they will make that connection between like there's a map with highlights and there's a list of cities or whatever, so just knowing what all the clues are is actually really hard in a real world escape room. And in a virtual escape room, it's not, because everyone is looking at the same thing, which is a complete inversion of how a normal escape room works.
Yeah, I think they did some, and we're going to talk about it in a little while, but I think they did some really interesting things to deal with the fact that everyone's looking at the exact same thing, where a normal puzzle room or escape room, is a bit of mayhem. And I think it's a ton of easy puzzles because it's also tailored to like corporate bonding events, where like there's going to be like two people that are like the game, people who everyone looks to whenever a puzzle room happens, even if you're not necessarily good at them, like what happened to me when I went with work and everyone just assumed I was going to be the one who would drive the show. I was like, nope, not as good. But Reagan, I will say, I know you're worried about, being in the room and being the one that is not helpful.
Yeah, I didn't actually realize I was the only one who hasn't done a real life escape room.
I've only done one real life. Two.
Interesting. I've done a handful of them. But no matter what, Reagan, you will do better than what my mother did when we went as a family. And she just walked around the room just going, "This is so hard." It's just over and over. We're like, lady, sit down.
Yeah. So like, if you don't think you can solve puzzles, the most helpful thing you do is just wander out of the room and saying things that are like interesting looking in the room.
Open
like,
books.
This map has nails on it.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's figures on this book. Like just talking aloud.
Yeah. This is so hard.
Look, I've unscrewed the electrical plate, and behind it, there's live wires.
Yeah. This is so hard. There was
This is so hard.
Your mother's picking up all of the like wooden furniture. This is so hard. Here's a rock. This is so hard.
Just literally naming hard things. I get it. There's the one I did. One I did. There was a clock on the wall that they actually had to put a sign underneath it that said, "This clock is not part of the game." Because, and we asked, as they said, because everyone was taking the clock off the wall and messing with it, and it was like, no, that's literally just a clock for helping you know what time it is inside of this like isolated space.
That is actually a real world like piece of advice that I would give anyone who's doing an escape room is like the fixtures, like the lighting in the room, like the things that are actually part of the wall. Not part of the puzzle.
Probably not
and
part
you
of
can
it.
ask when you walk in, like, is anything off limits? And they'll be like, don't touch the electrics. Like, don't touch this panel. Like, we're like, this is the fire alarm.
I did do one that was actually pretty, they had a clever twist on it where, early on they're like, oh, and hey, we do have free Wi-Fi. You're like, oh, okay, whatever. And then turns out one of the answers to one of the puzzles was like the Wi-Fi the name of the Wi-Fi network had like a clue in it. So you were actually supposed to like pull your phone out and look at the Wi-Fi at some point.
That's funny.
The last two things on like real life ones to know about is one, the thing table, like take all the stuff and put it on a table is a like tactic that people who escape a lot apparently do. The second is almost all the time escape room puzzles go to numbers, which is my like pro tip of, are you in a puzzle hunt where the puzzles are harder, longer, and like more puzzly and not in a real room? Puzzle hunts generally always are words. Always. And escape rooms are almost always like, I get very happy when you can actually solve to a word or solve to a phrase rather than a 4-digit code you put in a lock, because I hate using locks. That was my favorite thing about the online escape room is I didn't have to use a lock.
You just have to do the locks yourself. They have some guy in Ukraine doing the lock for you.
The avatar did it for me, and I was like, man, if every escape room came with a dude to unlock this lock for me, I would go through like 20 minutes faster.
I have actually had a situation in an escape room where there was a lot of finding of keys, and we had a lock that we were trying to unlock, and we had solved the puzzle. The lock was just stuck, and we were stuck for a little while before someone from like one of the escape room organizers, I don't know what you call that job or whatever, like noticed that we were having just physical trouble with a padlock that wouldn't open properly. And so that's another tip for people who are doing escape rooms. If you have locks, and almost all of them do, have 2 people try to open the lock. I don't know what it is.
Yep.
If the first person enters the combination wrong, turns the key, but it doesn't have, the right feel for it, I don't know. Have a second person try. It's just a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that's good to call out, that at least has been a staple of the rooms that I've been a part of, and I think we see it a little bit in the virtual one that we did, is that, as Shane just mentioned, there is usually someone watching the whole thing, and they are able to communicate with the party in some way. The way I've seen it usually done is there's a screen on the wall, and the party can basically stop and say, like, we need a hint. And then often there's some sort of hit for that. You may lose a minute off of your clock or something like that, although they don't always do that. And they'll give you a hint that'll be like, it may be obscure. And then if that doesn't work, they'll be like, look in book, page 45, code there. You're like, all right, cool. And that gets you to the next one. I think they want most people to escape. I think that's the most fun, but certainly not everyone does. And that is part of the whole vibe of these things, is that, like, if you work together and you go and you ask for hands when you're stuck, you'll probably get out, but you're not guaranteed to. And normally at the end, everyone gets together and takes pictures, and you celebrate either getting out or failing to get out. And they'll post it on their social media, and it's pretty funny if you see the pictures of people who failed to get out.
So I went to a virtual convention for reality, and that's what this is based off of. I paid for a play pass, which at the time I got the early bird, it was $50. I was like, maybe I'll get 2 rooms out of it. I got like 15. It was an absurd value. Like, I went to the conference and I got all these games to play, including several live ones, and I still have 3 more to play with a group. But also, just being in the Discord with a bunch of people who make escape rooms is very entertaining, because they're just spilling secrets right and left. And one thing they said is, like, first of all, they goose all the escape numbers. So, like, the percentage of people who escaped each room is always bullshit. 100% of the time.
Like high or low?
It's almost always artificially low, because they want you to feel smart. But they can't go too low. And they also said, like, whatever they put is the hardest room, like a bunch of, like, they have to goose the numbers of difficulty too, because they're like, almost like a ton of people go for the middle one, and almost no one wants to go for the easiest room, even if it's the best one. So they have to like goose up the levels. Like, they're like, we have to cheat to make people have a good time. But
that sounds right.
That sounds right. But the funniest thing I learned, is that horror games, generally losing is a better ending.
I can see that.
Like, almost always the horror rooms that you lose have the better ending, because it's scarier.
When the room fills with water, and you have to swim up through the grate and get out that way.
If I'm paying $40 for a horror escape room, I better die.
Yeah, I need to be stabbed or have a real threat of stabbing.
I'm just picturing someone doing a really good job in the game and stopping at the last puzzle, just like waiting for 30 minutes just so they can get like murdered by a serial killer.
I want the full experience.
But all that's physical stuff. So I want to move on to online.
Yes. So as I gather that what we have experienced together is not the standard for online escape rooms. It is like the innovation. So like what this game is, Project Avatar. It's been a while since we said the name. Project Avatar. We played Project Avatar Stalker, which is the second version of the game. And when it came out, it was like it was the big innovation. It was like, everyone has to learn from this game, and a lot of people,
because they actually got someone. I still cannot believe that there's a person that you are telling what to do, and they are just doing what you tell them to do. It's like we're slowly marching towards like dangerous game shit here. You know what I mean?
Okay, but is that the innovation you're talking about, Laura?
Yeah. So the first one was even less escape roomy, and you could literally do whatever you wanted in this abandoned warehouse, and it was like a get out of here alive. But it was like you need to like get 3 items and leave before you get caught. So it was even less. It was video gamey in that way, but it was like people went crazy because they realized you could break stuff. Like you could just destroy the room if you wanted for your 30 minutes. Like you could just knock
sidebar. That is also I'm sure they don't really exist anymore. But what for a moment, as escape rooms were getting really popular, did you all ever see those like I don't even know what they call them, rage rooms? Yeah, where you would just go in, you'd pay a flat fee, and they'd like stock it with plates and shit, and you would just go in and break everything for a half an hour and then leave.
So the first one was even more open world game. in the same spot. And this one they added a little, like they added a layer of like collecting items and crafting. So like people, it's still open ended, but like, you know, I think that helped. But people got really went absolutely insane about is that you are actually, there's a heads up display like a video game with your inventory, so you don't have to take notes, so you can keep watching, and that like you're controlling a person. So the fact that you could still like figure out like a guy with a helmet with a camera on it is like running around and you see his hands and he's helping you solve a thing.
So, since we're now into talking about the like,
let's actually discuss the project.
I think it would help to kind of give a little bit of the intro that they give you when you're starting
before you start the game, right? Yeah.
Is this going to be helpful? Okay, never mind.
Not the intro video, which is not going to be helpful.
Not going to be helpful.
No. So when you sign up for this, you know they tell you in advance that you know your whole team or whoever's going to be playing. You're all going to be sitting at your computers respectively, and this is all done over Zoom or another video conferencing.
In this
service.
case, Zoom, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, they can do others too, I guess, according to their website. I don't know if that matters. It doesn't actually. I don't know why I brought that up. It starts with a kind of an introduction where you talk to a sort of handler person who is there to kind of guide you and tell you the rules, and they play a rules video for you. So you are all collectively going to be watching a live stream streamed from essentially a helmet cam from somebody who is called your avatar. There's this whole goofy setup that I think we could talk about, and I thought
we have
really,
to.
We
really
must.
Great. It's really great, goofy setup for this.
The best part.
But when we're talking about like what's actually physically occurring, they have a designed game space. It's not like a wide open warehouse. It's actually like a several room complex with locked doors, full of clutter, basically. And your avatar is in this space with multiple rooms, and you are shouting directions at the avatar, things for them to do. And these might be, you can tell them to sit still and do a dance if you want, but mostly what you're going to be telling this avatar to do are things like picking up items. He has a bag. He can carry items around. And so as you see things in the rooms, you can collect them. Some of those will be just like sitting out in the open, and others will be locked in ways that require you completing a puzzle to open. Some of those puzzles are really simple. Things like there's a symbol on a wall and you need to use a UV flashlight to look at it, follow a series of UV paint arrows until you finally find a hidden object that is concealed and that the arrows are pointing to. Little stuff like that. Or more complex stuff. You have to find various different objects around the room, collect them, put them together in a special way. Maybe you find a code for a lock, or uncover a way to open a particular concealed space, and then you find another item. The items are mostly just like also clutter, little red or blue or yellow cubes or other small objects. Or,
thingamabobs painted.
Yeah, thingamabobs. Trash that they've painted in a particular color scheme to make it clear that these are objects that are things that you're meant to be collecting.
And if I can just make a quick point on this, because I think this is actually really, really smart, because these things are all over the place. And as Reagan said, this is like a dirty, dingy looking warehouse with just like trash everywhere. But most of these collectible items are like bright red, bright blue, bright yellow, and they really stand out. And they're kind of all over the place. And because every player is looking at the same screen, it gives you sort of a constant level of engagement. Whether you're good at the puzzles or not, you probably can help spot the loot. And so like,
and shout like avatar, there's a yellow thing to your left.
Grab the yellow thing to the left, and so there's always something going on. Whereas, in a live one, everyone's kind of separate, looking at different things. You're kind of doing your own little dig. If there was, with this case, everyone's looking in the same place, so you kind of need something to do a lot. And these little constant loot boxes basically are how they solve for that, I think. And I think it was really, really clever.
Yeah, there's literally never a point where you're like, Avatar, sit still and let's think about this puzzle for 5 minutes. that never happens.
No.
It's
this has a
constantly
really
moving.
fast pace.
Like all you see on screen is you see the avatar's hands and you can see the gloved hands, and he moves them sometimes in entertaining ways to keep things interesting.
So in a live escape room, you have someone who's watching and sort of guiding if you need it. This avatar, this person was awesome. So first of all, they're holding their hands up like a video game. They're running in a way that if you watch them, it probably looks like a crazy person.
But it looks like a video game.
I didn't think about that just now, but like he probably was running around.
Yeah, they're running with their hands like up in front of their head. But so it looks like a video game where their hands are like right in front of right in the middle of your screen, right? I'm doing it on the Zoom now, and this is not helpful for the listeners.
It's wonderful for us, but not for listeners.
And so like you'll be like, Avatar, go look on the shelf to the left for the blue thing, and he would like point and then do like a little thumbs up and go over and grab it. Or we'd be like, Avatar, play with, pick up the phone, try to call someone. And he'd pick it up and he'd put it to his ear and he'd be like, and he would like very visually be like, this is nothing. And he would knock it to the ground.
Or he'd trace it and be like, it's not connected to anything.
Yeah.
And like,
he was like an active
silently.
Yeah. He was, they never talked. We only know it's a guy because at the end they came out and like said hello, which was a lot of fun. But like, they were an active participant in the game, and they were really, really helpful for just like they never solved anything for us, but there was confirmation.
Yeah, like I remember at one point we were trying to figure out like can we use this? Is there an extension cord here or something that we can use? And then it was we thought maybe it was part of a puzzle, but it wasn't. It was just part of the part of the set, and he kind of like pointed at it and kind of did a little like it was kind of just gesture.
There's a lot of
stuff like that.
Confirmation, one way or another. There was a lot of confirmation. Like if we were onto something, he would kind of like, like thumbs up, keep going. And then if we were like wasting our time on something, he would do the thing we told him to do, but then he would be like, like cut this out, let's look at something else. It was great. Very emotive hands.
And it's not just the hands that make it feel like a video game. There's also literally like a HUD around that's collected, like as he picks up a yellow block and they add a yellow block to your inventory in the HUD. There's like a little thing on the right side that shows you what items you've collected. You can see how many puzzles you've done. Like the designers have said they wanted to fix the issue when you're in an online escape room where you're taking notes on paper or in a tab or you have a browser window open to look up something. They're like, we just want you to have the one window that you're staring at. Like maybe you need to jot down a number, but like we want everything there, which I found great. And it feels much more video gamey. Like
it does. It made me think like this is, and it was really, really well produced. Like it was the kind of thing that like any Twitch streamer would like dream of having such a well produced overlay on their video
using the same software.
Yeah.
Apparently.
I was thinking like this is probably OBS or I don't
OBS.
know what all they and it was incredibly well done, and it was important because a big part of this is its scoring system has to do with collecting all of these various odds and ends in various colors and then later taking them to a special place in the room where you can use a quote unquote crafting system to turn those random multicolored cubes or whatever into points. So just collecting the items isn't enough. You have to then take them and do something with them to get those points. But it's important to have a kind of a running total of like, okay, I have 11 yellow cubes and 15 ultraviolet cubes or whatever. And knowing that information, like it was very well produced. Guy picks up a yellow cube and you see a little animation of it, like adding that yellow cube that he picked up in real life and just stuck into his bag, adding it to the little total at the top of the screen. I thought that was like so impressively done. And it's clearly like really like a good coordination between the person who's the avatar and that sort of like handler person who's clearly like off.
I think they called it operator. They called them an operator.
Yeah. So I was just very, very impressed with like the technical side of this and the teamwork involved in like producing this thing and keeping it running at high speed.
It seemed like, there was definitely 3 people all together at least involved in operating the game that we were seeing.
They say it's 3 to I watched a behind the sines video, by the way. I don't know, this is where my secret knowledge is coming from. They said it's 3 to 4. So sometimes they'll need to have a person when there's battle games and there's like 30, there's 2 groups of people doing it. They need to have a person in the room helping reset. So like you might need a second person in the room to like set up stuff during cutscenes or whatever. Like,
And so,
Let's talk about the cutscenes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So, what
I was
you
gonna
just
say, which we haven't even brought up. There's cutscenes.
we haven't talked about the
Before
plot
we talk
yet.
about cutscenes, we have to talk about the plot.
So
Nate, do you want
back
to
to the-
explain about the plot?
Set up for this before rules, instructions, any questions, how do you play this game? And then you're launched into an intro video, which Nate will now explain.
Oh my god. Okay, so first of all, I want to say, so Molly was on this with us, and this video and these characters is like all like I'm searching for Halloween costumes at this point because I'm like so into this universe. I like the degree that they decided to go for it with this story is so funny, so unnecessary, because the what you're doing is so insane. You're controlling a real human by like consensus. They didn't need to make the story also insane.
This could have been something like really basic, like Cube Hunt, the search for cubes. You know, like it could have been ultra boring, but they went one step above.
Oh, they went like 30 steps above.
So I'm gonna. You all can help me fill in some blanks here, but the main character Utia Duck, which is a person who's wearing like a full set of pajamas,
patterned onesie.
Yeah. I think
so. I've got a picture of Utia Duck here, and Utia Duck is wearing like way too small for him, top and bottom pajamas that are patterned with like big bold words that say things like hero and kapow.
Yeah, it's like old Batman sort of things, you know, and they have a big like full head. It's not just a mask; it covers their entire head.
It's like a bucket hat.
Yeah,
if it kept going.
If it kept going, yeah.
It looks to me like somebody took like a really large pool inflatable of a duck or a swan, cut the head off of it, and just sort of draped it over their head like a drapey helmet.
And then put like stunner shades on top of that too.
And gloves, and blue gloves for no reason.
And so Utia Duck is...
He's like a transdimensional hero.
Yeah, they're in their airplane traveling amongst the different...
What was it called? The Air Doctor?
Yeah, Air Doctor.
I think it was the Air Doctor. Utia Duck is traveling between dimensions in his airplane, the Air Doctor.
In his Air Doctor. And
an actual airplane.
Yeah, they shot all of this at an actual like airfield, and so there's planes and stuff. And something breaks
during
with
this whole opening narration. I was just scrambling to write down all the weird nouns that they were telling.
So I'm about to get to that, and you can help me with them because I remember one of them
Please grab your notes
very firmly. But so the plane has a problem, and they're stuck in our realm, and that normally wouldn't be a big problem. He's a magical being. But his magic tambourine, which is used for solving the problems, he needed
feather oil. He was all out of feather oil to fix his magical.
He needed
plane.
a new tank, feather oil, and cloths.
And cloths.
I was like, are those? They listed 3 things. I was like, a tank, feather oil, and cloths. Okay. And then it said, these don't exist in this reality. And I'm like, they don't? Okay. And then it told us, in order to create them, there was a way for him to create them by magic.
Using his magical tambourine.
So he uses his foggy Googler in order to...
I wrote down a fog.
Yeah, in order to locate the magical pawn shop that every dimension has.
Exists in every realm.
Every realm has a magical pawn shop. But the problem is, and this is a real problem, folks, this magical pawn shop is owned and operated by a chicken. And
by Chickman.
Well, it's
a chicken.
It's Chickman, but he's a chicken, and Utia Duck is afraid of chickens, and so he doesn't want to go into the magical pawn shop. So instead, there's another noun that I can't remember, but he summons an avatar to go into the magical pawn shop and like gather the things that you're going to need in order to, I guess, like barter with the magical,
convert them
into the things you need in order to.
Yeah, he needs I don't know, something to fuel his magical tambourine, presumably.
And so the avatar, the person that you're going to control, like, comes out of like a cloud of smoke or something, and then goes in, and for some reason, even though Chickman runs a business, he is like terrorizes patrons of the business, because Duck is afraid of chickens, which that's why he doesn't want to go in. But also Chickman is just an asshole who like is constant. He's there,
who hides inside of boxes and springs out and
kills you because you have lives, which is funny. Three lives, and he'll kill you if you make mistakes in certain areas. And so whether you're afraid of chickens or not, just not a good place to go. And all of this is set up in this like insane live action video.
It's very short,
and it's like narrated. It's so silly and so ridiculous.
Yeah, we just took much longer explaining it than the game takes explaining it. It really just tries to immerse you in like an absolute like shock level of weirdness, and it had me
laughing.
Rolling.
But it was perfect.
Yeah,
like, it's so hilarious. It's like these are all compliments. Like this entire like us being like, this is so weird. These words are weird. That's all.
Yeah, I loved it.
Like,
I loved it. It was.
We are very happy with it.
I was going in so ready for like, puzzles starting now, and I was like, okay. Duck is the defender of balance across reality. Okay, got it. I'll write that down. Right in my notes.
Well, Molly was taking notes too and was writing down all these things too, and none of it meant nothing, except for that it fed into, which is what brought us into this, is that there are cutscenes in this live action game. So there are a number of things that you will interact with that will trigger a little video that will replace your
seamless.
Seamless. It'll replace what you're watching with a pre-recorded video of whatever it may be. Sometimes it is like a solution to a puzzle. If the you have to like break down a door, it'll change. You'll watch a little video of the avatar like breaking down a door. It's actually pretty clever too, because it allows them to like only do these damaging things to their escape room like one time, and then they just have to set it back up. But anyway,
you can set bombs off and stuff.
But you can also turn around and see the doors fall in. But yeah, it's great.
And then there are also like, and there's another one where I just lost my mind. There are like little fun things too, like when you solve a puzzle, like inexplicably for some reason solving one of the puzzles, Dr. Robotnik, like a little like graphic of Dr. Robotnik
like
showed up dancing on the screen while Michael Jackson played, and I was like, these guys are going to get sued, but this is worth it. This is awesome.
Yeah, it was just like these little beautiful, like it's great in anything to solve a puzzle and feel a little moment of triumph, but it's even better when it's accompanied by a music hit and a bizarre animation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's excellent. Every time you had any small success in this game, it like celebrated it for you by showing you something weird.
So funny.
And you can do anything you want in this too. Like you can have them climb ladders. You can like I don't want to spoil some of the stuff, but there's like you can do things you would never be allowed to do in an escape room because they're frankly dangerous.
Yeah. Well, we'd ask him to like, hey, pull that thing down from there, and then he would, and he'd be like, man, that was nothing, I was convinced that there was something to do with climbing a ladder, and so I won't spoil whether it was or was not, but it was cool that like that was a part of it. And these cutscenes, like besides the silliness of like Dr. Robotnik showing up, there's also a ton of like, it's funny, but it's also intending to be like spooky and weird and sort of like grungy and punk, where like Chickman will come out and like kill you, and
I loved opening the boxes, and sometimes you open a box and some. Oh yeah, we didn't. So there's tons of when this game has the more elaborate puzzles, which are usually not terribly complicated. There things like find an object on one side of the room, realize that it's related to another object on the other side of the room, connect them in some way. I'll give I'll give one example that I think that is a puzzle solution, but I'm not going to be like, I'm going to try to obfuscate it a little bit so that I'm not spoiling anything. You find at one point a projector in the room, and it's pointed at a blank projector screen. On the projector screen, there's some stuff drawn, and so it's kind of obvious immediately, like, oh, well, we probably want to turn on this projector, but you can't for reasons that I'm not going to spoil. And you have to find some objects in the room and figure out a way to turn on the projector. Once you do, and you get your puzzle solution, it gives you a code, and then you put that code into a lock on a locked box. And generally, that's how these puzzles work, is like you solve something, and you get a code, say like a 4-digit number, and you use that to unlock a box. One of the things I really liked about this is we didn't really need to like write those codes down. We just shout them, and then the avatar goes and immediately puts them
the avatar is constantly cutting corners for you. If we're like, oh, is it, hey, avatar, I think the code is 4741. He knows it is, so he just runs over there and does it, and it's like, all right, tight. He wasn't
great. It keeps the pace going.
He wasn't putting in a lot of wrong
I was worried this was going to be like, walk 4 steps right, pick up the one, on the second shelf. No,
and you could be even like,
and then when Avatar, he does go and open these boxes, he throws open the lid, and either a video plays in which you get a triumphant dancing Eggman, or a video plays in which the threatening chick man emerges from the box holding some dangerous item and murders you.
These are obviously the best results you can get.
Yeah, quick clarification. Puzzle solutions always loot. Question mark boxes are the
random shot.
Is it a trap?
That's right.
Also, there's an overlay that's like 18 question marks, and it's like, is it a trap? Comes across the screen.
Yeah, and like, again, I'm doing it on the Zoom, but like the avatar is doing like pointing to the box. He's doing
he wants to open
he's doing
it real
like
bad.
thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, and then we're like,
I was all in on the box.
Me and Shane were trying so hard to get us to open every single box.
We had it hard because we opened our first box and we got big loot out of it. I think we just got a bunch of cubes or something, right?
Yeah.
And then we opened our second box and Chick Man jumped out and murdered us. And then we opened our third box and Chick Man jumped out again.
So now we only had one life left for the last like 40 minutes of the game. They have a
so we didn't open any more boxes.
There is a side game you can do. You can spend 5 minutes of your time and you play. We didn't do
3-card Monty.
Yeah,
basically.
it's the
shell game.
The shell game. Yeah, and it looks like Chick Man is doing it. I'm assuming it's a video. We didn't do it because we wanted to spend those 5 minutes exploring, but we really got shut down from those boxes pretty quickly because 2 of the first 3 we opened were not good. We learned at the end that that's not very common. They do actually like randomize it, so we just got some bad luck.
And I think the majority of them are like loot, and then the minority are the boxes containing death. But even so, like, I was glad we did that anyway. It was really funny to get killed.
Oh, it was so funny.
And then after that, we just focused primarily on solving puzzles and collecting loot around the various rooms. And we haven't talked a ton about the scoring system. Once you've collected all of these cubes and stuff, you go to, there's a special zone set aside for the crafting
table, and you unlock it after you solve 9 puzzles.
Right. And it gives you a formula or a set of formulas. Like if you combine this number of blue cubes with this number of yellow cubes with this number of ultraviolet cubes or whatever, then you get an object worth 100 points or 1,000 points or whatever. And then they're different recipes. So like, a complex recipe gives you 5,000 points or 500 points, I think. And then the easier recipe gives you a smaller number of points. And then you have to kind of like figure out, okay, like how many points can we actually make out of all of the crap that we have? Which was fun, but also it was like by that point, we were really looking at the clock because we knew we needed to escape by a certain time.
And so every time you craft, it triggers a little cutscene with
very Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
right?
but like it's like ching with like a saw like firing sparks and so like good. Hammers coming down and like very industrial. As he's making your different items is very funny, and the full cutscene played. I don't know if we could have said like, all right, craft 500 things and 200 things. Like
we did at the end. Yes, we could have.
But we did it in two separate batches. We did all the high ones first, and then we did the low ones second. So we had the full cutscene twice, which was very funny. I was wondering if they were like, oh, maybe we...
It was actually longer the second time. I'm 95%
because we did more
sure.
things.
Yeah.
I think it's relative to the amount. I don't know.
It was funny, though. And then at the very end, you just say, Avatar, run to Utia Duck, which is fun. And then he bursts, he's from wherever you are, he runs through a predefined path, gets out, and then triggers a climactic cutscene, and
which we won't spoil.
of course not.
Right.
But trust,
but it's more excellent video production.
Trust that it's absurd and it's awesome. And honestly, like, the whole experience was a ton of fun, and I think it would have been fun even if it was just like grab the blocks game, like you were saying. But this weird layer of the story and the whole vibe of the thing really was effective at making it a very unique experience and was a ton of fun. I like Utia Duck is my new favorite character.
Yeah, I definitely have to say, like, it was not what I was expecting. I was expecting more emphasis on puzzle solving and less on sort of like frantic space exploration and like bizarre just aesthetics. It was a huge surprise for me and like way more fun than I was expecting. I had such a blast.
And between Laura and Molly being puzzle masters, like, I think we were mostly just like, what? Oh my God. While Laura and Molly are like, okay, do this. Oh, I think we do this. Oh yeah, do this. Count the things, add the things. And we're all like, Utia Duck, will you be my best friend?
And Utia Duck's like, yes, I will. Well, so I picked this because when I did, this was one of the games that I got as like my play pass. So I played this with a bunch of people at Recon at the A. Lest you think I cheated, it's a warehouse in a like abandoned or formerly abandoned train depot. So I played the upstairs A group, and then but there's a B version of the game that's in the basement, the bottom floor.
Yeah, when I went on their website, they call these phase 1 and phase 2, which implied to me that it was like you have to do phase 1 before doing phase 2, but it's not like that at all. They're really just like, do you start the game at one end or the other of the building so that, you could potentially overlap on some of that, but, this gives you the option basically to play through it twice and not see most of the same stuff.
Yeah. So when we got to the crafting room, we could go into the A levels, and I just basically was like, hi, I'm not going to do any more puzzles, but like you can run into the beginning of A if you like have extra time, but it's only for a few minutes at the end, and you really aren't going to do much. But it was really cool because I was able to, like, the only thing that I had in common really was the crafting room. But the rest and we didn't solve many puzzles in the crafting room when I played. So I was like, oh, I can actually solve some of these. But it was, it's cool that you can basically in the same space play it twice. And I know they're doing some revamping of scripts, so there's going to be like another version of it later this year, but they're going to keep all the stuff we've been praising. Like the weirdness will stay, the HUD will stay, the avatar will stay. They're probably just like going to add new puzzles and stuff based on feedback.
Well, the fact that you don't have to have people in there, and it is still, even though it's more insane because you have like people controlling another person, that's way more controllable from a design standpoint than just letting a bunch of ding dongs run around in a room full of junk, So like, I think they could switch it up.
We had fire involved in one of the puzzles in the other game.
Yeah, that would never happen. So they can get way more creative and way more interesting. And I would imagine change things up faster because they only ever have to worry about the employee running around in the room. They're gonna, even though they'll do anything we ask them to, there's of course a limit. They're not gonna actually do something that would forever irreparably harm themselves or the building. So unlike a real escape room where you'll be tearing clocks off the wall, We're just walking in circles saying how hard it is. But anyway, I could see them iterating on it very quickly. And because it's global, it just seems like such a great business too. Like, I have to imagine that this is a successful idea if they keep running with it, because you don't have to worry about, like in St. Louis, there's like 8 different escape the room companies, but so they're all competing for just like local people. But, we were all across America playing this game in Ukraine. It's wild. I said it when we were done. I was like, this is the most 2021 thing I think I've been a part of,
Oh, yeah.
And it feels like it's just the start,
Yeah, and I picked this because it's so video gamey and like not puzzly at all. I was like, oh, no, this is clearly the one the short game should play.
Yeah. I definitely think I would recommend this to any group of people who love video games, because it has so much video game DNA in it, but it's also unlike anything you have ever played before. It was a very, very unique experience. Also, like, while we're talking about it, like, if you want to play this, first of all, their website, which we haven't mentioned, is projectavatar.fun. You should go browse around it. It's great. They've
you can
got
see the
pictures
trailer.
of Utia Duck. Yeah, you can see the trailer. Yeah. And if you want to reserve, they have, it seems like really flexible scheduling. Like, you can play this late at night if you want, because they're in Ukraine. I guess the time zones are working in your favor. They have times between like 1 p.m. and like 1 a.m. I think. Like, I'm not exactly sure how the time zones work out on all of this, but they go really late at night.
We played from 10 to 11 Eastern time, right? So it was pretty late.
They let you reserve for between 1 and 15 people. I don't think this would be very fun with one person. I think you really need the team.
I feel like 15 is also probably a lot, but
probably a lot. But yeah, I think for us, we had 5, and it was like a really good sweet spot. And it's 25 euros, or they say like $30.
It's like $30 a person.
And I think that's like super fair, because this is like 90 minutes of like the time of several human beings.
Yeah, and
the thing is, like, sometimes you go to like in real life escape room, and if you go to a bad one, you're like, oh, cool, like I just paid $30 for like some really bad props. But here you're like, oh god, like there's props, there's tech, there's 4 people. I'm like, oh, you see the money.
There was a human doing whatever I tell them to do. That's worth, at least $30.
And he like fake laughed at some of our jokes, which was at least worth.
I like to think it was real laughter, but I was probably just making the same jokes like every, like, oh, there's no price tag on it. That means it's free, right? I'm pretty sure I was that guy that night, but it was fun. We were having a good time. It
was a wonderful experience. And then I really loved the end when the Avatar came out, and we got to see. We didn't really see it. Like, Laura saw a behind the scenes video, but like it was really interesting to see the like tiny glimpse of behind the curtain when the Avatar comes out, and we saw that he's wearing a basically American style football helmet
with a ring light stuck on his forehead.
Yeah, a ring light and a phone clip attached in front of his face. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it makes perfect sense, because like, what else are you going to do that's going to give you like this high, by the way, like technically like high ass quality video streaming in real time wirelessly from this guy to all of our computers. Really impressive. But yeah, like, I guess he just has a phone strapped right in front of his face.
Exactly. And it's because like the phone is like got the like it can go to the network, and it has mobile backup, so like the phone is the most resilient way to stream video like on the move.
Makes sense.
Incredible from like a tech standpoint, and also just like really, really, really well done. So is there anything else to talk about this incredible experience? Or we were also going to take a little bit of time to talk. Laura was going to tell us a little bit about resources for folks who might potentially be interested in other online escape rooms. Sorry, Shane, go ahead.
This is hard to say if it is a spoiler, because we didn't actually solve this one. But upon reflection, has anyone have any idea what the deal was with the bunny mask?
I think that was just silliness.
I think it was just there to creep us out.
I think there are Easter eggs in the room, so there are things that are there for funsies. Honestly, like, sometimes things are puzzles, and sometimes things are weird.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
I think that
I
was.
don't want to talk about what happens, but if you're playing the game and you're in that area, like try putting on the bunny mask.
Yeah, I'm pretty
It's a
sure that
time.
I'm pretty sure that was just high weirdness and not a puzzle. Based on how the avatar reacted whenever it was done.
But it was great. One last fun story behind the scenes that I found out from the video. So when they were making this, they were like, aesthetically, we wanted abandoned warehouse. Like, that's what we want to go to. So they looked at abandoned, they're in the Ukraine, they looked at abandoned places. They found an abandoned wine factory. Like, this is perfect. And they got all the boxes in for their first play test. Like, we won't put everything in, but we'll put all the puzzle pieces in. And then, like, the cops showed up, were like, this place is shut down because it's incredibly dangerous. Could fall. Like, it would kill you.
Oh,
so,
no.
And then they were like, oh, we have all our stuff in the room. And the cops are like, well, we're going to help you get the stuff out. And they're like, it's all these little like red and blue and yellow cubes everywhere. And like and then they're like, go upstairs and there's like a
Now
fake
the cops are
corpse.
literally playing the.
Like there's an artificial corpse in like one of the first rooms. And like, they're like, the cops like, what the hell?
We have our first
Officer, go
player.
inside and get
Yeah.
all the cubes.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can come out once you've collected.
Yeah,
them.
you have to craft them. If you can score 4,000 points, you can leave.
And then they
Officer.
found a second spot, and then they had to abandon it because it had like very bad mobile Wi-Fi. So then,
Oh, no.
so they found like an arts, like someone had bought an abandoned train station, and were like, "We're going to turn it into an arts complex." And they were like, "Hi, can we just have some and like don't fix it?
That's awesome.
Like install
Well, I'm
the
glad
internet."
they found this space, and it was really it was a really good space for it because it was complicated. There were a lot of doors, and that's really I think what
And
you
stairs
need for something like
and-
this. Yeah, really good space.
Do you think a lot of the like fixtures and stuff were there when they moved in? Like it had tons of like little shelves and alcoves and chain link fences. and
Oh,
all
I think they
kinds of
moved
stuff.
a lot of that. They might have grabbed they grabbed stuff from garage sales. So like, who knows? Like some of it was probably there.
Yeah.
They probably brought a bunch of random stuff in.
I was trying to find somewhere they had posted a like list of like funny things that had happened to them.
They posted on Facebook, and one of them was that apparently a teenager was playing it, and their mom walked in and was like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm controlling a guy in the Ukraine." And the mom freaked out and like shut the
this some
thing
dark
down
web
and like
thing?
thought it was a weird dark web thing. When the host had to come on and be like, "Actually, it's a game, ma'am. Like your son is safe. He's not hacking."
It does
That's
have
so
the
funny.
it does have the aesthetic of like, oh man, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I could see a parent walking in on this and being like, oh god, what is going on?
Yeah, for sure. It's like a dingy room full of weird stuff. The guy has fingerless gloves on. I mean, there's
Fingerless gloves are definitely
That's a sign of-
you see
yeah.
somebody wearing fingerless gloves in an old warehouse,
Right?
You know they're up to no good.
exactly.
Oh, and they posted one other that said a guy joined the live stream only after the game had already begun, and he thought it was a computer game. And then by the time they got to the end, he realized it was a human being, and he was really
like-
freaked out. Sort of like Nate's experience, but like I think it could be even
If I had
Like-
gone like a half hour in before, yeah, it's so funny.
Like he didn't figure it out till the end.
So while I totally recommend Project Avatar, this was like an incredible experience. And if you are listening to this and haven't, and you're listening to it relatively close to when we are, putting this episode out, I would 100% recommend like get some friends and do this thing. And maybe this one will be over. If you're listening to this like in a year, maybe this particular experience is over, but they've got some new one. I can't wait to check out whatever they do next.
They're all building on each other. Like the first
Right.
one was more like open world, like battle-y. This one was more like crafty avoidance. Like I'm sure they're gonna do great stuff.
Yeah,
So.
can't wait to see what they do next. But there are lots of other online escape rooms as well. And Laura, having just attended a conference about this stuff, is going to talk us through some of the other options that are out there for, maybe this doesn't sound like your thing. Maybe one of these other ones does.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a million at-home ones. Like real quick before we go into online ones, there's a million.
I have some experience with some of those.
Yeah, at-home like box ones. Go ahead,
I can
Shane.
personally recommend the Escape brand, I guess, of
Mm-hmm.
or sorry, Exit is the name of
Exit.
it.
Yeah, I was going to say
Exit
escape.
brand
Yeah.
of boxes. I've done 2 of those, and what they get really right in those is a really clever mechanism for self-checking on what are often fairly open-ended puzzles, and a lot of variety too. They're fairly cheap. You can do it with as few as 2, or I've done it with 4 or 5 people. They can spread the puzzles out. People can like share the puzzles amongst each other, and it's a good way to spend a couple of hours. So I really enjoyed those.
Yeah, and I think that if you have just one person to play, Neil Patrick Harris has a box that I think is a Target exclusive called Box One that everyone really likes. It's only for one person.
What can't he do?
Oh,
Neil Patrick Harris.
I know. He was the intro speaker for this conference just because he asked to do it. He was like,
What?
"Can I be the speaker for this conference?" They're
He's
like,
so great.
"Sure."
He's so great.
If there's a place in Minnesota called the Trapped Puzzle Rooms that did a audio escape room over Discord with me that was absolutely incredible. It was called Escape from Escape Room Island. It's not ready for the public yet, but once it's out, it's great. But they do a thing called Trapped Takeout where they have puzzle takeout containers that are food themed, and apparently their Taco Tuesday is incredible. It's 2 teams, the Flower Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and the Corn Intelligence Agency, CIA, have to join forces to stop the guacamole.
Oh, no.
And it's 2 teams remotely, with their own puzzles that share together. And apparently that's just, they also do, a pizza box one that's, Teenage Mutant They do a pizza box one that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle 80s themed, and I ordered the Spielberger box set, which is a bunch of DVDs of fake Spielberg movies.
Oh, neat.
That are all burger puns. So those apparently are great. And another one would be Puzzle Curious, which is if you want to do the classy route, you want to have a really good feely box, beautiful objects. Puzzle Curious has a one called the Emerald Flame that I kickstarted that should be showing up this fall, and it's just pretty. It's gorgeous. Everything in there looks like it's a real artifact, and I'm okay, this is nice stuff. There's a ton.
I love
of them,
that you
though.
use the term feelies, which comes right out of old interactive fiction. There's a little of that DNA in this whole research in the home boxed escape room thing, especially. I could very much see there being little similar kinds of souvenir feelies that you have that are incorporated into the puzzles in the game.
I have a little bit of a question about how these types of games work, because these game in a box style things where you've got you're buying a box and it's got a bunch of like a book with instructions in there.
No, so sometimes there is the Exit the Room games have a book and cards,
A deck of cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you by solving a card and getting the right answer, you flip a card over and it'll be yes, that you solve a code, you look up in this ring thing, it'll be flip card 37, and he flips you over and it's yes, that's the correct answer. Now flip over another 4 cards. That's how that one works. The Box One is a deck, also has a deck of cards. Trap Takeout has an online site. A lot of them have online components. I've several people at this escape room convention were yelling about how good Bluefish games were because they have great puzzles. They do a game called The Curious Elevator of Mr. Hicks and The Curious Stairs of Mr. Hicks. And apparently both of them are very good, but it's unlocking a puzzle moves you up the stairs type thing.
Curious.
Curious, indeed. But I
Elevating.
But they don't really do too many, it's not a book. I think the one thing that, unlike escape rooms where you're supposed to, just look everywhere and take apart everything, these boxes are please don't. Please don't spoil your own puzzles. open things when we tell you to open them.
Just like ripping the booklet in half. There's got to be something in here.
That's where I think I was confused, because like I was imagining like, okay, they give you a box full of stuff, and maybe you're supposed to intuit that there's a puzzle involved, and then when you solve the puzzle, how do you know you solved it?
They often have like a bunch of stuff to start, and then there's a bunch of stuff in like other envelopes to open later. And it's like once you've solved this
tons
bit,
of sealed envelopes,
you open the next sealed envelope and go from there.
Everyone that I have seen has some sort of instruction booklet, and then the other almost completely ubiquitous element is a decoder wheel of some kind.
Love a
Those
decoder wheel.
All the ones you can buy in like stores have decoder wheels. Like the indie ones don't usually. The indie ones have tried to go away from decoder rings.
Is that just like a production thing? Like those are hard.
Yeah.
You have to have a factory make them for you, basically.
Well, I think it's more that they have like an online component, or like they want videos or like some extra thing. Like they just think it's more smooth to do, like, or they have an online hint system. But like, think about like Mattel isn't going to run an online hint system, right?
No. Yeah.
So I think that's why they have that.
That makes sense.
They also do a ton of like subscription boxes also went like through the roof. Like you can buy puzzles on a t-shirt. You can buy them on candy bars. You can get like
puzzles on a t-shirt.
There's this hunt a killer thing, right? That's like on every podcast is advertising hunt a killer.
I don't do the murder ones. Personally.
Just did that sentence in a vacuum.
Yeah, but there is a puzzle. There's an Escape the Room shirt that everyone likes. It's called like Solve Our Shirts, and it's from a place in Illinois.
Funny.
And it's a 2-sided shirt. And like they are very adamant that you should not wash the shirt prior to doing the puzzle. And I'm like, I want to know what that's about. Why shouldn't you wash the shirt? Like,
You'll wash away the evidence.
maybe.
I mean, you have me so curious, and I was like, oh man, I really want to see what that looks like. But of course, one cannot simply find a picture of the puzzle shirt.
If you search Solve Our Shirts, they're like representative picture, but we've changed it. Like,
Yeah. Or they at least make you solve a puzzle to get to the picture of the shirt. You know, at least make you do some work.
I know it's Minotaur themed. But like there's also books, but those are way more like puzzly. They're not really escape rooms. Like if you want to get into like escape room books, those are like
I just pulled up the Solve Our shirt, and like they do say like, this is the preprint rendering with puzzle details removed, but also pretty cool looking shirt. This looks like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm like not.
I haven't done the Solve Our shirts. If anyone wants to do that with me.
Yeah, I almost exclusively wear like non-decaled shirts. So I'm thinking like if I'm going to wear a shirt with like print on it, like I'm just gonna go full the other direction. You gotta look at this thing for like an hour to understand the shirt that I'm wearing right now.
Very nice.
That's a pretty clever idea. Yeah, I really like the idea of those, like, just recently, and this is like a very, like, not the same thing at all, but like recently my wife and I were trying to figure out, what do you do? Like, we need better ideas for date nights than we've been doing during the pandemic. And, going full old person mode, we got like a jigsaw puzzle and did that together. And it's a very different thing than doing an escape room, but it was actually really nice. We drank cocktails and did a jigsaw puzzle together for a couple of hours. And I'm like, maybe my initial feelings about like the whole escape room and puzzles thing was like, this isn't for me, and probably not something I would enjoy doing with my wife either. But you know what? Maybe it would be. Some of these seem sort of like playful enough that I think I would enjoy.
Yeah, there's definitely very playful ones. Like I play tested one that's fairy tale crime themed, but like not like murder, but like
Reagan, we did one that was relatively tiki influenced. So
all right.
And we'll link in the show notes, but there's people have gotten way better at doing like indexes of at-home games that you can leave reviews, like little Yelp for at-home games, or you can, a couple more like tabletop game in a box. Those are, mail subscription are pretty straightforward. But the online ones, I'm going to give you a couple words to Google if you're looking for like online ones. So what we played is a live stream avatar, meaning it's like has a host live with you in the room and there's a person you're controlling. There's also like live streams that are like there's actors and there's like they're in the room and you're improvising with them, and like you have to do theater and they ask you questions and you have to like think on the fly and like they ask you to put on costumes and like
that's
may
Reagan's
not
nightmare.
be your thing.
There's Reagan's
or it may be
nightmare.
like it might be your best friend or like that might be a nightmare. But like that,
I was really like halfway expecting something that would be similar to like the game that Reagan and I had as a kid, Double Switch.
Oh, hell
What's
yeah.
Double
So
Switch?
this is a full motion video game similar to Night Trap. If you've ever
Yeah,
seen that
it was
one.
like almost a sort of pseudo sequel to Night Trap. It was
and in that one you had someone was locked in a security room for an apartment building, right? So it was that was the kind of it's honestly kind of a similar experience to this FMV game where you have someone who's like quote unquote trapped in a remote space communicating with you over video. And then, but in that game, rather than puzzles, it was all like quick time events to drop actors into pits.
Yeah, in that game, it starred Corey Haim and
Yes,
Debbie
it did.
Harry.
Yes, it did.
Actually,
It did star those people. Yes, it did.
it was great. That was
YouTube
It was like a terrible game in a lot of ways, but like I think probably one of the better ones of those if you're the sort of person who can get any enjoyment out of a FMV game. It's a lot of like burglars breaking into this bizarrely intricate apartment building, and you have to like switch between cameras on different floors because things are happening simultaneously. And if you see someone breaking in, you can't just sound the alarm that they broke in. You have to wait until the exact moment that they step on the pressure plate that is that activates a trap, and then you have to hit a button because it wouldn't do to just have the traps that you want to trap these people in just automatically trap them. You have to hit the button at the exact right moment, and then if you do that, it plays the animation of them falling into a hole in the floor or getting stabbed or whatever.
That's awesome. I played this game a ton in the early mid 90s when I was a kid that a friend of mine had, and I just Googled spooky board game with VHS and it worked. I found it. It was called Nightmare, and it was a board game that had like your little guy and you're going around a path, and if depending on what you landed on, you would have different things, just like any normal video game from that or board game from that time period. But there was this VHS that you would play, and it was like it looked like the Undertaker or like a Crypt Keeper sort of character would be like, "Ooh, you've rolled you now have to roll the spooky dice. Whoever rolls the highest takes 3 points of spooky damage," or something. It was like, and it was the same video every single time. They made it random by like the video, it would speak in that way where it was like, whoever did this thing now has to do this thing, and so it made it a different experience every time you played. But there were like bugs crawling on his face and stuff. It was for like 7-year-old me, it was awesome. I kind of want to it's like $80 now though online, but I kind of want to like find a copy and see if it was actually any good or not, or if it just was child good.
Yeah, I mean, well, these are like, it's strange being like, oh, this is 10 minutes where your job is to improv with me, and I need to give you, oh, okay. Like I played one in Play Pass where like we faked our way into a job interview, and it was like, great, in 4 minutes I'll see your presentation. And I was like, oh, wait, we have 4 minutes to improv a slide deck? Like, is that
That's
what?
funny.
Yeah, okay, that's what we're doing. Like,
Oh my
cool.
God.
I was like, this is very stressful.
It's like those Quiplash games. There was a fake presentation game in Quiplash too. That was a ton of fun.
And I was like, it's not really an escape room thing, but it feels like something that you could do over Zoom. I was like, I could see this being good at a corporate event, but I don't know any of these people that I'm playing with, and it was fun, but it was like daunting. One thing I did when we were talking about remote avatars, apparently there is a game that is at a Japanese studio that is Baba is You, but real. And I don't know how that works. It's apparently in a science lab where you've basically figured out how to do Baba is You with reality, and they use like cutscenes and special effects to make like the laws of physics change in the room. And I do not know how this works.
Sounds fascinating.
But it is called Escape from the Science Lab of Shifting Rules. And if it seemed like a expert level game, and I had no way of testing it beforehand, but people seem to think it is absolutely wild. You switch, you're constantly just changing words around on a board, and then like the whole room changes. Like, that's the kind of weird stuff escape room people are doing in the pandemic.
I would. This has opened my eyes to an entirely new type of entertainment that I would love to try some more of these. Laura, do you have any other resources you want to point people to?
Yeah, I'll say that there's a world of like audio only ones that are theater of the mind. So if you're like D&D friendly, there's a bunch that you can play over Discord. It's like audio only ones where you like pictures will come up on the board, but you don't have to see the host. Like, it's much more like that. And I'll also say that if you don't want to, like, if you want to play a game tonight, you don't want to book someone and like take a human being's time and probably get a cheaper game, like on-demand unhosted ones are big. There's print and play ones where you can just like go grab them. There's ones that are kind of like alternate reality games, like circa, I don't know if you are familiar with ARGs, but like you go on a bunch of websites to like do your search. And there are like actual puzzle hunts, which are like, I don't want the escape room, I just want to play puzzles. And they vary wildly from like beginner friendly, like Colby's Curious Cook-Off, which is by like escape room people, so they're escape room level puzzles, to like, please don't start with Mystery Hunt, like, but you can play the MIT Mystery Hunt if you want. Those puzzles are very hard. I wrote down one of the sample puzzles, but I'm reading through the write-up, and I don't want to subject you all to it. Like, it involves Feynman diagrams and particle physics, and just like maybe not if you're beginning. Like, play the demo of Colby's Curious Cook-Off and see if you like it. If you want a puzzle hunt, like, it's good. But there's a bunch of things. Like, everyone is making online stuff now, and they have been for the last almost 2 years at this point. So awesome. I think people are just getting weirder and weirder. I have like 80,000 suggestions in the show notes. But I think this is like, the nice thing is like you can get one that's one night. You can play this for 90 minutes. They're all kind of like contained experiences. And so they do fit in short game. I'm glad I found this. I have something I can play with my twin sister who really likes the idea of escape rooms, but we live in different cities. And so we've done a couple online ones together.
That's awesome.
And it's been really nice.
Yeah, this was incredible.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can line something like this up for my next corporate event.
Yeah, and the on-demand ones that don't have a live host also are good if you don't want a timer. So if you want to like go cook dinner or like go get drinks in between, like those are nice if you don't want a timer, because none of the on-demand ones have timers whatsoever.
That's smart. I think that probably would be a big plus for
neither do the table. Like, you can just ignore the timers on the tabletop ones too. Like I always do.
Awesome. So, Laura, thank you so much for organizing this, and thanks to Avatar and to Utia Duck for going through that experience with us. If you want to try this particular game, again, they are at projectavatar.fun. I don't know for sure how much longer this particular experience is going to be going.
This one will run to the end of October, and then they're opening the new version, which will be comparably priced. They're just revamping scripts and videos and stuff.
Okay, I would do this again, and once October rolls around, I loved it.
Yeah.
So recommended. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net. That's where all of our stuff is. Our searchable show notes page, if you want to look back over all of the games we've covered in the 7+ years of the show. You can also find us on Twitter at _shortgame. And you can find us on Patreon. That's right, this show is supported by our listeners on Patreon. Thank you for your support, supporters. If you support us on Patreon for even just $1 a month, you immediately get access to our Discord, which is where we talk about the show, we plan episodes, we chit-chat about various things. You can suggest games to us there. It's the best way to grab our attention.
And I still got 8 games to play for this Play Pass, so maybe I'll ask you to join me.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. And if you want to join Laura on one of those, jump on there and chit chat with us. That's something that our patrons, you get our ear there. You can also, if you support us on Patreon for $5, the $5 level, I will send you stickers in the mail. So
they're
that's
nice
exciting.
stickers.
Thank you. I made them myself by ordering them on the internet from someone who makes stickers. You can... and also, we do early access to episodes for our patrons. So if that's something that matters to you, you get episodes often several days in advance. You kind of get to beta test our episodes.
On the Discord, we're all doing the milk crate challenge.
No, lies.
Good Lord. How many injuries do you have, Shane?
I don't know why I would have an injury. I am good at the milk crate challenge.
Cool. You can find our show on Twitter at _shortgame. You can find me on Twitter at Reagan K. That's RayGank. Laura, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Laura J. Nash.
Shane, where can people find you?
On Twitter at 8BitShane.
And Nate, where can people find you?
On Twitter at NateSTL and at the Tattoo Parlor getting a Utia Duck tattoo.
Oh, please do.
I'll get a matching one. I love it.
Tell me if you find those pajamas, because I would really love them.
I know, right?
They looked fun and comfy. As long as you don't get them in the size that poor man was wearing them in.
No.
Listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.